Well, welcome back to another episode of Fox Sports Lab NRL. I'm Eloise Soiher, and as always, I'm joined with Josh Morris. Josh, great to have you back for another week.
Good to be here, Eloise.
Well, let's chat about the Blues and Queensland and State of Origin. The third game is around the corner. This week, Brad Fittler announced his squad 7 changes. Firstly, your initial reaction to that?
Yeah, look, I didn't think there'd be that many changes. Obviously, Payne Haas is out with injury, but he also got rid of Junior Paulo and Stefano Utokumano as well. So there's 3 front rowers effectively gone there. Obviously, Luai has been dropped, and Fittler's explanation was because they hadn't been scoring enough points. So that's fair enough. And I think he indicated that for Tyson Frizzell, his Origin career is pretty much over. So, a lot of changes there, but there's some players there that probably could have been there from the start. I like the look of Kaloa Matangi coming back into the side. Bradman Best is obviously on his debut, so that's a big one there. And Regan Campbell-Gillard, if he wasn't injured in the first place, he probably would have been in that side from the start. So a few changes, and we've got some debutants and we've got some blokes coming back into the fold, and that's a good thing. It means that they'll want to keep their jerseys, but also for the players on debut, they'll want to keep them as well by putting in a good performance. So I like the look of the side. I'm going to get right behind them, and hopefully we can avoid this whitewash. For Queensland, they've got 2 forced changes, obviously with Reece Walsh being suspended and Flegler being injured, and they bring in 2 quality players. Corey Horsburgh, the mad redhead, he gets his debut. AJ Brimson gets back into the fold for Queensland. So they're just as strong a team as they were in game 2, unfortunately.
Yeah, for Blues fans, it is unfortunate. But do you think that Brad Fittler's made these changes too, just given that his job is on the line as Blues coach and he's got to fight for every single game from here on in? I guess there is one left before they go back to the drawing board and negotiations begin again.
Yeah, that's it. And you don't want to be known as a coach that is the coach of a series whitewashed. He hasn't been on that end. Obviously, Queensland have won 3 of the last 4. They've been close in all those series except for this one. So if this is his last game, he'll want to get his team over the line, and especially at home in Sydney as well. The boys will want to put on a performance and get the victory for the Sydney fans, because we haven't had a lot to cheer about in games 1 and 2.
What do you like about Cody Walker coming into the side? He's been there before. He's got a lot of experience back at Clubland, leading the Rabbitohs around the park. What do you like about him coming into the halves for the Blues?
Yeah, look, he's another one. He probably could have been there in game 2 if he hadn't got that groin injury. Cody has been on fire this year. He's got the Bunnies left edge on song, and a lot of their points come through him and the way he plays his football. He plays his best football when it's off the cuff and he's running the ball. And I just think he's probably in probably better form than what Luai is. For Luai, this is probably a bit of a kick in the guts, but it'll allow him to go back and focus on his footy now for the back end of the year with the Panthers. So, and like I said, he gets another shot at it. He said he probably thought his time was over, but he gets another shot, and no doubt he's going to make the most of it.
AJ Brimson comes into fullback in place of Reece Walsh, who's out suspended. Big shoes to fill coming in to take over from what Walsh has done in the first 2 games, which has been pretty incredible.
Yeah, Walsh has probably been one of Queensland's best players. He's been electric, but in saying that, a couple of years ago, AJ Brimson was a fullback for the Maroons, and they ended up getting the job done and got a series victory while he was there. So, as I was saying, they just keep finding players that are, a like-for-like replacement. And I've got no doubt that he'll be one of the men to watch come Wednesday week.
Yeah, looking forward to Wednesday week. Well, let's turn our attention now back to Clubland and focus on just briefly a few of the results from last round. The Tigers and the Bulldogs, big blowouts on the receiving end. There's some huge points put against them. Where to next for each of these clubs? Let's start with the Tigers, because they did seem to get back on track for a little while there, but then that scorecard of the weekend just really was not pretty viewing.
Yeah, no one really saw that coming. Maybe the Cowboys saw it coming. Obviously, they had a point to prove from the last time they played each other. I honestly don't know where they go from here. I mean, they tested out Dane Laurie in the halves with Luke Brooks now moving on next year. Was that our first look at what could potentially be for next year? And if it's not, well, then they've still got that problem of who do they get in the halves next year? They have to go onto the market, and they don't want to spend overs for players. They need to get players to the club, but they're in a predicament now where they don't want to pay overs for someone and end up, making their salary cap issues worse. So they're in a bit of a tough one with the Bulldogs. That was probably the more disappointing of the two games. 66-0. Old boys' day for the Bulldogs down there, and they were playing against a side. I think they're 14th at the moment, the Knights, and 66-0 just was not good. Injuries obviously have cruelled the doggies, but they've got some light. I mean, Bill Kikau has been out for nearly the whole year. He's not far away from coming back from a pec. They've got Stephen Crichton coming next year, who will play fullback there. So I think there's a bit of an upside there, and I think another pre-season under Cameron Ciraldo, he'll be able to shape and mould them into the team that he wants from them for the next year. So if I was saying anything, the Bulldogs have probably got a bit more light at the end of the tunnel out of those two teams at the moment.
You talk about the Tigers and recruitment for 2024. I mean, how long realistically are we looking at this rebuild for the Tigers, for the West Tigers, in terms of how long could they be back in the winner's circle and be up around the top 8? How long do these restructures take?
Well, they do say 5 years, and I guess that's what both the Bulldogs and the Tigers have gone for, a 5-year plan, with Sheen's 2 years as head coach, and then moves into the general manager of football, and Benji and Robbie take over, and you've seen Cameron there for 5 years. But it all comes back to your salary cap as well, and how you manage it, and being able to attract good players to the club, but not spending overs for them. And that therein lies the balancing act. And the clubs that do that well find themselves up higher quicker than what they normally should. So they've got a lot of work to do, but I think it won't be long until the fans can have some joy.
How much does this time for these two clubs rely on the senior players and the leadership amongst those clubs to step up and try and lead them at this time, and give them a little bit of confidence and hope? I mean, you've been in and around rugby league times throughout your career. When you're on a losing stretch like this and points put against you like that, how do you sort of, galvanise together?
Yeah, well, that's it. You just got to train and bunker down, and don't listen to the outside noise. You practice everything at training the way you want to play during that week, and the senior players do have to lead it. They have to lead the culture. They have to lead the training. They just have to be at the forefront of everything, and making sure that the younger players are seeing what they're doing, and it becomes infectious. But also, you need to win as well. Winning is contagious, just like losing is contagious. And sometimes all it takes is one good win, and you can get yourself back on track.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about winning. The Tigers will be looking to win in round 19. They come up against the Sharks. It's a tough task. What do you like about this matchup, though?
Yeah, it is a tough task, but the last time the Tigers got held to 0 was against the Bunnies, I think, in round 11. The next weekend, they came out and put on that record score against the Cowboys. So they can bounce back from this, and they'll want to bounce back from this. As we've said before, a week's a long time in football. These players, as soon as that game finished, they would have wanted to get straight back out and play again, and try and put a bit of pride back in the jersey. So that's a danger thing for the Sharks. If they're thinking that they're going to take this side lightly and that this will be a walk in the park, the Tigers can get the job done. We saw them in the derby last week, the Sharks. They were too good. At stages, the Dragons challenged them, but in the end, Nico Hines got them, got the attack flowing, and they looked a really dangerous side. So I like the Sharks in this one, and I think if they turn up with the right mindset, they should still win by 13 plus.
The Raiders come up against the Eels. The Eels are outsiders against the Raiders for this matchup. Do you think that's pretty much on par, given where the Raiders are at? Do you think they're a genuine top 4 contender?
Well, the Raiders playing the Dragons this week.
I forgot the game and stuff.
But in terms of the Raiders, I think they haven't really played too many top 4 sides this year. They started the year off pretty poorly, but this middle part of the season during Origin, they've played some exciting football. I think having Jack White and Josh Papali'i in the side from their Origin retirements has done them the world of good. I think they're sitting at 5th at the moment, and a win can put them into 4th. So I would like to see them play a couple of top 4 sides, and then we can actually get a real gauge on how they're going. But they're certainly not flying under the radar anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Genuine top 4 contenders. Good news down there in the nation's capital. I will get in the next game, right? Let's focus on the Eels. They've got Clint Gutherson that's been called into the side into Origin camp. Also to Regan Campbell-Gillard. Can the Eels and Mitch Moses as well? Can the Eels cover these rep players well, like other clubs can do, aka the Panthers?
Yeah, I might have said with just Moses in their side and Regan Campbell-Gillard, because they do have Junior Paulo back in their side, but they've lost 2 important members of their spine there in Gutherson and Moses. Regan Campbell-Gillard's been outstanding when he's played for them. He's really led from the front, and they have no Dylan Brown as well. When you look at the Warriors spine of Nickel Clockstad, Luke Metcalf, Sean Johnson and Wade Egan, I think there's just a bit more experience there and a bit more attack in them. So I've actually tipped the Warriors in this one, and they were hurting from their loss last week against the Bunnies over there in Auckland. So they want to get one back here over in Parramatta.
The Bunnies will be looking to stay in the winner's circle. They come up against the Bulldogs. Do you think they're going into this one thinking it could be a little bit complacent, just given what the Bulldogs put up last week?
Yeah, well, it's a similar thing to the Sharks. If they turn up with a strong attitude, they certainly can get beaten, because the Dogs, I mean, they were woeful, but they'll want to come out and put a better performance in. And they have no Damien Cook, no Kaloa Matangi, no Cody Walker, no Latrell. So they've got some big outs there for the Bunnies. No Murray. Big outs there for the Bunnies. Toby Sexton's come from the Titans. He's making his debut for the Dogs. What a great debut it would be if he could go down there and steer the ship to a Bulldogs victory against South. So this will really test South's depth, but I still think they're going to be good enough against the Doggies.
And just lastly, you touched on Sexton coming from the Titans. The Titans come up against the Dolphins. Is this an opportunity for Wayne Bennett's Dolphins to get the season back on track up against a side like the Titans, who are sitting in and around the middle there?
Yeah, I think it is. I think this is a good game for the Dolphins, and probably another Queensland derby. So Wayne will have them up for that. But the Titans, they're without their Origin players. They've got Brimson, Fafita, Tino, and Mo Fodawaker out. So there's some big outs for the Titans. And the Dolphins, they welcome back a bit of experience with Anthony Milford and Jared Wallace. So I've tipped the Dolphins in this one, purely on the fact that those 4 key players for the Titans are out, and the Dolphins get a bit more experience back, and I think that experience will help them get over the line against the Titans on the weekend.
Yeah, fins up in Queensland. Josh Morris, thanks so much for your time. For another episode of Fox Sports Lab NRL, we'll see you next week when we're previewing round 20 and also chatting all things State of Origin Game 3.
Thanks, Eloise.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.